Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. If you're tuning in from a way different time zone to our fans in Europe, good evening. Starting to sound like the Truman Show here with Jim Carrey, but what's up, everybody? That's basically what I'm trying to say here. Welcome to Your Fielder's Choice live before kickoff. My name is John Maffa. Today I'm here with Devin Frank, and we are ready for Week 3 NFL. Get you guys primed and ready to go, entering those lineups. What's going on, Dev?
Man, it's best day of the week. Got my Browns hat on, ready to watch my Browns take on a Buckeye and Justin Fields. So I'm really excited to watch some football today.
Hell yeah. And, one of our fan favorites is missing today. Miz couldn't be with us, but we'll try to represent him well. We got all of his picks and his articles from the website, so we'll go over that later on. He's our GPP king. So I'm just going to regurgitate basically what he told me this morning to get everybody ready to go. But before we do that, hop over to yourfielderschoice.com. We got a great special going on right now, $25 a month for the first 2 months. And with that comes not only NFL info, we got all the sports, MLB, NHL is going to be starting back up soon, NBA, as well as niche sports, esports, Korean baseball. We got everything. You name it, we got it. Head over to yourfielderschoice.com. You really can't beat it. And, I'd be remiss, too, if I didn't bring up the cheat sheets created by, our one and only Dev here. They are crucial to making your lineups for NFL Sundays, midweek baseball lineups, and anything, honestly, that you can think of. But yeah, that's all for the website. Let's jump into Week 3. That's why everybody's here. That's what we're all jacked up about. Let's move over to our cash plays, Dev. So what do you like this week? Who are you looking at for quarterback? What do you say?
So this is a pretty clear week for me, and it's based on pricing. I got a few pricing ranges I like with a few guys in each range. At the top, you've got guys that are always in play. Lamar, Mahomes, Kyler Murray. Elite arm talent, the rushing upside. These guys are in play every single week. Right now, Lamar is leading the way in terms of projected ownership, but not by a ton. He's leading because he's the cheapest of the three. He's actually averaging almost 100 yards, rushing yards per game. So he gets a Detroit defense that's giving up 38 actual real points per game to the opposing team. With the Ravens so banged up, Lamar's just going to do it all. So he is carrying an injury designation this week from the little flip he decided to do last week, which while it was fun, he hurt his hip a little bit, but I wouldn't put any, I'm not going to let that scare me off Lamar Jackson.
That's just what you want to hear as a Ravens fan.
Yeah, right. Just what they need. So, any of those three big boys, I don't need to tell you why. They're all elite plays, all in play. If you land on any of those three, you can feel pretty good. They're super consistent, and all are in pretty decent matchups, and all three have Vegas totals of 29 or higher. So again, that top range, those are your three plays. That mid range, it's really, I wrote him up early in the week thinking he would go a little low owned, but he's climbed up all week, is Matthew Stafford. He doesn't carry that rushing upside, but he's facing a Tampa Bay defense that's really banged up in the secondary, and that's awesome against the run. So the way to compete with Tampa Bay is to throw the ball. Well, Matthew Stafford can do that. He's averaging 300 yards per game. Tampa Bay is allowing 342 yards through the air per game and only 57 on the ground. So again, Stafford's going to be airing it out here. They're going to really struggle to run the ball. Henderson is out as well. So you're going to get Sonny Michel in there most likely, who, he's only been there 2 weeks now. So who knows, how well he knows the playbook.
And to add to that note on the Tampa Bay defense, they've actually this season to date have allowed more PPR fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than any other team in the league. So that plays right into your narrative of Stafford kind of airing it out, getting some love to all those receivers this week.
Yep, and he comes in at 6'4" on DraftKings, which is really, really cheap considering he's been pretty good. They've got a high total as well, 27.25. So this is a really good matchup. I'm really excited about. The spread's down to a half point. So, Vegas likes it to go either way. I think it opened at 1.5. So it's been tight the whole time.
That's what we took them. Me and you went opposing sides there. We'll get into that.
And that speaks to how close it is. We literally went opposing sides on our picks on that one. So, just a really good spot. Again, if I land in the mid range, Stafford, love it. Especially on DraftKings, FanDuel, you can get up to a higher price quarterback pretty easily, and you're going to see most people do that. So DraftKings, Stafford's kind of your mid-range. And then we've got 2 punt options I like. We got my boy Justin Fields, and we've got Daniel Jones. I wrote up Daniel Jones this week on our top plays article earlier in the week. Gets an Atlanta team that's giving up 40 real points per game, 29.6 DK points to opposing quarterbacks, which is second highest on the slate, ironically, to Cleveland, who Fields is facing. So both are in really good spots. The reason I liked Fields is because if you've watched the show before the show, I do not like Matt Nagy at all.
I was gonna say, I can't believe you put a Matt Nagy guy up there.
I know.
After all the shit you talked about him for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. So Matt Nagy terrifies me with Justin Fields. I'm worried that he's going to play it super safe and not let Fields ball out. Because I mean, as a Buckeyes fan, Fields is incredible, but you gotta give him a chance. With that being said, he is only 5,200 on DraftKings. And Daniel Jones is kind of in a weird spot at 58. So if you're building and you can't get up to Daniel Jones, I'm okay with Justin Fields at 5,200. He's currently coming in as the punt play ownership wise. But today ownership at the moment is there's a lot of guys within 3% of each other. So Lamar on down, it's all really tight. So this is one of those days where I'm building. It's going to be kind of see where I land. This is a tinker day. Tinker, see what your favorite combination is, because a lot of these guys are in really good spots. Jones, Fields, they're in really good spots. Stafford, really good spots. Your big three, so that's how I'm approaching today at quarterback.
And we spoke about this too in the past, right? Like if you get a quarterback at 5,200, that frees up a lot of salary that you can invest in other areas and kind of lock in some of those bigger plays. And also, if he's a starting quarterback, right? So he doesn't need an overwhelming amount of points for it to be worth it. You're looking at anything from like 15 to 20 points, and that's
he does that price. Yeah, you're golden.
Exactly.
And I do like him I think he can rush for 50 plus yards today. I think he is.
That's the upside there, right? Yeah. I mean, with the Daniel Jones too, we'll get into him a little bit later, but with Justin Fields, like he could rush for like 50 yards or even 30 yards and then, throw a touchdown or two on the goal line or even rush for a touchdown. They run a goal line package. Like it's not that hard to get to that number when you're looking at a guy like him who is so dynamic and, he's full of youth. So they're not afraid to use him in different things, different packages. So I'm okay with that call, even though Matt Nagy kind of scares me a little. Yeah. All right, let's move over. Let's move over into running back here. What do you like this week on the running back front? I feel like there's a ton of options. I don't know what one is like overly chalky. I feel like you can convince yourself to go either way. What do you like here?
So Dalvin Cook was the pretty clear play coming into the week. Seattle's gotten torched by running backs. Let me pull up the numbers here, actually. Obviously, we all know what, Derrick Henry did to him last week, just going nuts. But it wasn't just that. So Derrick Henry ran for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns against Seattle. But the Colts the week before didn't have a single running back that went nuts. But as a team, they ran for 113 total yards. So they really spread the ball out. So Seattle's allowed, over 100 yards, both games on the ground. They're averaging 162 and a half yards per game against on the ground, which is pretty big number. So Dalvin Cook was kind of the play. Well, he hasn't practiced all week. We actually have an inside source with the Vikings hit up Miz last night saying, hey, I don't think Dalvin's going to play. We signed the practice squad running back. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but it is looking less and less like he's going to play. And I think even if he does play, I think he's going to be extremely limited, putting Alexander Madison in a chalk spot here, especially on FanDuel at just 5,200. I consider that to be a free spot. On DraftKings, he's 6K. If we don't get the Dalvin news and you don't like that price tag at 6K, you might get away with fading him. But this is going to be one of those. What I would do today with this news is I would have 2 lineups. I would have a Dalvin Cook's 100% out lineup where you have Madison jammed in there. And then I would have an option without Madison just in case But again, even if Cook plays, I think Madison's going to get plenty of run this week, especially on FanDuel at that price. I think he's a lock.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show started too. It's not official that Cook is out. However, it is all signs pointing towards that way. And even if he does play, it could just be, one of those decoy plays where he'll be in on a couple of packages, but, nothing too significant. That's why we got Madison up there.
Yeah, and he has I just updated the cheat sheet right before we came online, and he has officially jumped to the top. Um, so that's I think he's going to be pretty chalky. So like I said, definitely FanDuel, just lock him in, move on. Even if Cook plays, Madison's going to get enough touches at that price to pay it off. So DraftKings, he's probably going to be pretty chalky too. Behind him, we have another FanDuel pricing play. Saquon Barkley is only 6K on FanDuel. You probably never see him this cheap again. We talked about it on the show before the show. He saw a really big increase in his snaps from week 1 to week 2.
It doubled.
Yes, literally doubled, telling me that he's ramping up. And this is the week we're going to see him. Atlanta's allowing 127 and a half rushing yards per game. We already mentioned the fact that they're allowing 40 real points per game. So this defense is absolutely dreadful. Giants have a total of 25. It's going to be one of the higher totals they have all season long. You're never going to see him this cheap again, most likely. 6K on FanDuel this is another play. I'm probably locking in Madison and Barkley together. That just opens up so much salary.
And Miz loved Saquon too on our Wednesday show there. He came in as a must. I mean, this is the time you want to play Saquon, right? When the public isn't fully on him just yet. I mean, obviously people know he's good, and obviously people will play him. But given the history and just basically what you usually get out of a Saquon, where he's in the high 7s, low 8s range, coming in at 6,800 is a bargain deal against a shitty defense. It's not like he's going up against, some stout defensive line like the Atlanta Falcons. They suck. So, and Saquon is coming off the injury. So, the first couple of weeks are not indicative of probably how the Giants are going to use him moving forward throughout the whole year. So he's starting to ramp up. It's a kind of a perfect storm, if you will, for Saquon Barkley.
Yep. So I like him on both sites, especially on FanDuel. DraftKings, I expect him to be really popular as well. And we, of course, we have Derrick Henry. Don't need to say much about him. Always in play. Typically, he's a little bit of a late season guy. Not this year. He was nuts week 2. Had a slow start to that game and then just erupted. He's expensive, so you'll have to make a decision with Derrick Henry. Do you want to play Derrick Henry, or do you want to get one of the expensive Chiefs players, skill position players, which we'll get into? So that's kind of the decision you're going to have to make: Derrick Henry or a Kelsey or a Hill. Because you're not going to be able to play all three. So that's the decision to make. Another FanDuel pricing play I like on DraftKings as well, but Austin Eckler comes in at 7K on FanDuel. That's a very good price. 7.2 on DraftKings. KC is giving up 202 yards per game on the ground. Now, granted, they faced Lamar and they faced the Browns. Both are fantastic running teams, but still, Austin Eckler, you're actually going to get into him a little bit later. So I'll leave some of that for your GPP discussions. But yeah, definitely like Austin Eckler. Alvin Kamara is a guy that's bringing up some ownership. He made my dust picks for the show before the show, and I'll just kind of quickly hit on that again. My reason being, he's facing the Patriots. What are the Patriots known for? They take away one weapon on the opposing offense. No Michael Thomas. Who are you going to take away on the Saints? You're going to try to take away Alvin Kamara. So that just scares me at that price. I think I would rather play an Austin Eckler, a Barkley, somebody like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that was something that we spoke about on Wednesday. Like you said, it's weird putting Kamara on a dust list or a hate list, if you will, but it's just for this week. And it's because of what you said. The Patriots they have a good knack for taking away your best offensive weapon. And honestly, who do you take away on the Saints to cripple them? It's going to be Kamara. So, maybe in a GPP you throw him in there, but not for cash, for sure. Not coming in at that price point.
Yep. And their total is only 20. That's pretty low. And then there is another DraftKings specific play, which I put them in my must list earlier in the week. With Madison hitting the board, he's not as much of a must, but if you need the salary, the clear top salary saver at running back on DraftKings is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's been terrible this year. He really wasn't great last year. He comes in at only 4,800 for a clear number one running back on a team with a 30.5 total against a defense that's giving up 162 rushing yards per game. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't do anything this week, then he can't do anything the whole year. Like, this is the week for him to do something. It's a great matchup. It's a fantastic price on DraftKings. I'm not playing him on FanDuel. Give me the 500 savings for Barkley, but 4,800 on DraftKings is a really juicy price.
Yeah, he had a tough stretch there on Sunday. Basically
Yeah.
lost the game for the Chiefs. So maybe you get a little bit of that narrative going too. He needs to prove himself, but the matchup is good, and the price point is good for him too. Again, the starting running back at 4,800.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I threw Sonny Michel on the list, 4,900, 5,700 on FanDuel. He's not going to garner much ownership, but he's looking at a starting role. He has the ability to catch the ball. He is facing a brutal Tampa Bay rush defense, only giving up 57.5 yards per game. I would rather play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then Alexander Madison's 500 cheaper on FanDuel. So you're not going to really find yourself playing Sonny Michel, but I just wanted to give another value option behind him. Other than that, I think that's really where I'm concentrating my ownership is the guys on that list in front of you. Madison, Barkley, Henry, Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is where I'm concentrating my cash plays.
Yeah, and if you look at the screen here, you got 6 options. They're all moderately priced, with the exception of Derrick Henry. So you can definitely make some combination of these guys work if that's the way you're leaning.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's move over to wide receiver and take a look at some of these top cash plays. What are you thinking in that vein?
So it's been kind of the YFC guy to start the year, Cooper Kupp. We've talked at length about him every week this year. His price is getting to where it should be, especially on FanDuel, where he's almost 8K. 6.8 on DraftKings is too cheap. This guy should be 8K. If he's going to keep seeing 10.5 targets per game, if he's going to keep putting up 100 yards per game, just keep locking him in. And even when he gets into that 8K range, if he's going to be that consistent, he's looking at being one of these elite Tyreek Hill type of players. So Cooper Kupp, he's going to be chalky this week for good reason. We talked about that Tampa Bay pass defense. Fantastic play. If you cannot afford him, Robert Woods comes in much cheaper.
The forgotten or
yes,
miss or not really spoken about other stud receiver on the Rams. Woods is good, and
he's great.
He hasn't been getting much love lately. And when I say lately, 2 weeks, but he'll pop eventually one of these weeks.
And because he hasn't been great, his price is way down. 5,700 on DraftKings is really, really cheap. So this is one of those plays where if I find myself landing in that area, there we go. I can play Robert Woods and feel pretty good about it. I do expect Kupp to be pretty chalky. And I would have one of the two. If you cannot get up to Kupp comfortably, then I would play Robert Woods because, again, 342 yards per game. Tampa Bay, that's where you beat them. They're going to be throwing the ball a ton here.
And just to jump in there real quick, you mentioned the word chalky. We've been saying it a couple of times for people who are listening on the stream and they're not too familiar with that vocabulary. Chalky just means popular plays, which is something you almost want to lean to in cash games, which are your 50-50s or double ups in DraftKings or FanDuel tournament plays. FanDuel website plays.
There you go. Yes, absolutely. Another play that's looking to be pretty chalky is Chris Godwin, especially on DraftKings. He's a full 1,200 cheaper on DraftKings than his FanDuel price. Comes in at just 6.1. No Antonio Brown. Again, we're expecting a shootout here. Both teams with a total over 27. Chris Godwin comes in super cheap. He should be in a bigger role. 6.1 is going to lead to a lot of ownership on DraftKings. It's a very, very nice price. He's in play on FanDuel as well, but that DraftKings price is pretty juicy. And I mentioned Tyreek Hill. You're going to have to decide. They got the highest total on the board per usual at 30.5. Tyreek is a monster. What was it last year? He had a 200 and something yard quarter last year.
Yeah.
So his upside and this is a week you can get to him. I've got some builds with Tyreek that I really like. That's where like a Justin Fields could come into play. If you wanted to get a Derrick Henry, a Tyreek, or Kelsey, that's where that value of a Justin Fields comes into play. You could play
Yeah,
him.
you play Fields and you jam in Cup and Hill. You're
Yeah,
looking pretty nice on
you
your
can do it
wide
with a
receiver
nice,
builds. Yeah.
exactly. You can do it and still feel really good about your lineup. So
Yep.
Tyreek, always elite. I don't know if I have him on here, but Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's, I don't know why he's under 7K. He's put up over 100 yards each game. That's all he does. He just puts up 100 yards a game. KC defense has not been great, giving up 469 yards per game of total offense. So yeah, Keenan Allen's a play that I always like. He's kind of just Mr. Consistency. He's not going to blow you away, but he just pretty much 100 yards a game. Cortland Sutton, another play here I don't have on the list, but he's certainly in play. He had like 200 and some odd yards of air yards last game, which air yards essentially equals opportunity. That tells you that his day the other day was for real. He's going to keep putting up big numbers, especially as he gets
I
healthy.
mean, this is a guy that had a ton of hype last year. He got injured with week 1, and then he was out for the year. And then obviously, they drafted Jerry Jeudy, and you kind of like forgot about Cortland Sutton. Can't speak today. But he's a talented guy, and like he was somebody that Denver was really excited about for a long time. And now, he's healthy and Jerry Jeudy's out, so that kind of sucks if you're a Denver fan. But Sutton is definitely a guy that coming in at low ownership can pay dividends on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. And then just a couple quick FanDuel pricing plays. DK remains cheaper on FanDuel. Justin Jefferson, Diggs, AJ Brown, all kind of land in this upper to mid tier on FanDuel that are priced nicely. Mike Williams remains cheap on FanDuel if you want a piece of the Chargers, but can't quite get up to Keenan. He's been super consistent as well. He's averaging 11 targets a game, 86.5 receiving yards a game. He has 2 touchdowns on the year. So there's a lot of options at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And then there is a punt option. There's a punt option that's pulling ownership. And then, of course, there's a play that I want to get to that we all are big on at YFC. The punt option is KJ Osborne. I actually wrote him up on the Monday morning reactions 2 weeks in a row because he just keeps producing. He's a guy I've been telling you to pick up in your season longs because they don't have a tight end. Irv Smith got hurt. They traded, or Kyle Rudolph signed elsewhere, and Tyler Conklin's he's just not a receiving guy. So essentially Osborne's become their tight end, out of the slot. He's gonna catch the ball. And he's averaging 7.5 targets, 83.5 yards per game. Gets a good matchup against Seattle. He's only 3.5 on DraftKings. That's a really nice play for a guy who's really produced this year. So if you need the savings, KJ Osborne is that guy for me at receiver. Again, this is the option where if you wanted to get, one of those high price plays we talked about, a Hill, whatever, but don't want to play Fields, then you could take a punt with an Osborne.
And there's
pretty good about his role in the offense.
And if you don't feel, if playing KJ Osborne feels a little weird to you in cash, there's definitely reason to play him in GPP that I can get into in a bit here.
Yes, absolutely. And then one last play I'll mention. This one hasn't even made our cheat sheet, which means he's not projected to pull much ownership. But Rondale Moore is just a guy we've been raving about for weeks. He's awesome. And Hopkins is banged up, probably plays, but this is a game that in theory they should get out ahead and pretty quickly. And I think this is where as a coaching staff, if it was me, I don't play Hopkins a ton if I don't need him. Giving Rondale Moore even more snaps. We saw, I think he picked up almost 10 more snaps last week from week 1 to week 2. He was phenomenal week 2. He's got elite upside when he has the ball in his hands. So that's more of a gut play, and he may come in at low ownership, but Rondale Moore is kind of one of our YFC poster plays. So certainly got to mention him.
Yeah, he's one of our guys. It kind of sucks because I'm noticing a trend here where a lot of our guys are NFC West guys, which obviously say we love Cooper Kupp and we love Rondale Moore and we want them to succeed. And that just goes against everything in my being. But DraftKings is totally different. You got to put FanDuel aside there. So Can't deny the talent. All right, what about moving over into tight end? What do we like here today?
So tight end's really a two-man race for me today. Ownership's going to suggest a few more plays, but I'm really interested in either Travis Kelce, obvious reasons. I think he is the GOAT tight end personally. If anybody wants to debate that with me, that's fine. But I think the stats every year he adds to that argument. But anyways, Travis Kelce is expensive, but literally he's a wide receiver one. He had the second most receiving yards in the entire NFL last year, not just tight ends, receivers included. He's averaging 92.5 per game. He has 3 touchdowns already on the year. This dude's a matchup nightmare. He's a monster. Always in play. The other guy I really, really like this week is TJ Hawkinson. He's averaging 81.5 yards per game, 10 targets per game. He has 2 touchdowns. The big thing here, though, is Baltimore has gotten torched by the tight end to start the year. Of course, they faced Darren Waller that first week. If you watch the game, you know how that went. He went absolutely nuts. He saw 19 targets, I believe it was.
Yeah, he had an insane amount of targets that game.
he had all those targets. And then week 2, so Waller finished with 109 yards and a touchdown that game. And then Kelce in week 2 had 105 yards and a touchdown. So they've given up a 100-yard tight end each week.
Granted, those 2 tight ends are really good.
Yes, those are 2 of the
keep
best,
that in mind. Yeah.
Probably the 2 best in the league. But I would put Hawkinson in that top tier talent-wise.
He's like right in that,
yes.
obviously like 1, 2, and 3 have got to be like Kelce, Waller, and Kittle probably.
Yeah, talent-wise, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got, that 4, 5, 6 range. Hawkinson definitely fits in there. And coming in at 5,200, it's hard not to like him. You're saving, $3,000 for somebody that could produce, nice numbers for you.
He has a chance at $3,000 last to match Kelce to put up that 100-yard touchdown day. So I really like Hawkinson today. I really like Kelce today. That's really where I'm concentrating on. If you can't afford him, Tyler Higbee, he made our goldfish section last week. Don't let last week scare you away. Again, there's that Tampa Bay defense we've talked about. The way to attack them is through the air. Darren Waller, always in play again. So say you land at 7,400 on either site. Man, I can't get up to Kelce. Well, you can feel pretty good with Darren Waller. He's averaging 13 targets per game, 85 yards per game. Nothing wrong with that. And then Gronk. Gronk's been phenomenal this year. Antonio Brown's gone. I believe Gronk has two touchdowns in.
Gronk has been surprisingly nuts
games
this year.
Yeah. Because the playoffs, I believe he had 2 touchdowns in all of those games as well. So he's riding a 2 touchdown streak. So Gronk's there as well. So this is another position where I've got a clear grouping of targets. I'm concentrating on Kelce and Hawkinson. But again, if you're tinkering and you don't like your builds with them, there's some other really strong options at these different price ranges. And that's where the cheat sheet comes in handy, because you can see like, okay, I landed at 5,500 on DraftKings. Oh, look, there's Gronk. Like, that's a really good play. So that's where that cheat sheet is just a beautiful thing.
All right. What about here? I know you don't tend to prioritize defenses, but anything you got for us on the defensive side before we move to GPP plays?
Yep. And I've got to mention it every week. Defense should be the last position you input. Do not build around defense. It's just not worth it, because it's so based on turnovers, and turnovers are not, they're not a for sure thing. So you want to get a defense in a good position, obviously, but do not. So for instance, right now, Denver at 5K on FanDuel is projecting the most ownership. That's a lot of money for defense. I'm not making Denver the first button I click on FanDuel and then building around that. I'm going to build, see where I land, tinker if I need to. I do want to mention some ownership plays. So I mentioned Denver on FanDuel. Great spot, but they're expensive. You got Buffalo as the next tier. Again, facing Washington. That's a really good spot. Buffalo defense has been fantastic. Below them, I do like Cincinnati. Pittsburgh is banged up. As Miz would say, Ben's got the hurt boob. And then no Deontay Johnson. That's a big injury. Deontay Johnson's a target hog. So Cincinnati's been okay defensively. They're not allowing a ton of points, only allowing 22 points a game. Not huge yardage either. So I like Cincinnati at 3-4. They're only 2.1 on DraftKings. If you need to punt, that's my favorite punt. And I also like Tennessee at 2.4 on DraftKings. Getting in the Colts and a Carson Wentz who has not one but two sprained ankles. So I think
This
the
guy,
Colts,
man.
yeah, dude, it's not. And he's playing. That's nuts. So
Yeah.
2-4 on DraftKings that's another punt option.
I don't even want to walk to the kitchen with two sprained ankles.
Right? I cannot. I mean,
Game.
he's gonna be on so much pain meds. I can't believe he's even playing, to be honest.
Yeah. That's wild. All right. Well, yeah, that takes us into our next section here, which is GPP, which is primarily run by, our guru Miz. He's off doing some stuff this morning, but he passed along some information. And if you are a member of the website, anything that I'm saying is not going to be a surprise to you because he wrote it up in his GPP article called Miz Matches. So number one here, he's targeting the Vikings Seattle game. It has an implied total of 55 points. And, we talked about Alexander Mattison. Will he or won't he be the starter? Dalvin Cook has that questionable label. It's leaning that he won't play, but even if he does play, we don't know what we're getting out of him. So for all of those reasons, we're probably going to come off those guys on a GPP slate, and we're going to target the pass game. So it wouldn't be crazy to start Cousins with one of those, pass catchers that they have on that team. I would even be crazy enough to do two pass catchers so you can pair up, Justin Jefferson. Maybe you have room for Adam Thielen, but if not, we did mention KJ Osborne. Pair him up with one of those guys, and then you run it back with the Seattle side. Maybe a DK Metcalf who had, a pretty low scoring affair last week. I think he put up like 5 points. He was on our Be a Goldfish section on the midweek show. And for those of you who don't know, those are basically good players who dud out that we set it and forget it. One bad week, you move on. The industry itself may not move on from DK Metcalf right away because he let them down last week and he comes in with a high price tag, but that's all the more reason to start him in a GPP lineup. So you do that, you could run it back with Chris Carson, and now you're really targeting that game. So if that game blows up and they hit their 55 points, or, it's just a shootout, which is very possible with those two teams, you're in the money there. And then you just have to hit on a couple of other picks that you make. Second game that he was targeting, which sounds crazy and is definitely uncomfortable, but it's okay because it's GPP. So you got to throw darts sometimes. But he has a reason for it, and that's Miami versus the Vegas Raiders. Total of only 44. But, this play is mostly about the Dolphins operating differently with Jacoby Brissett at the helm over Tua, right? Which should give you a high leverage in tournaments. A lot of people are thinking it'll be the same offense, just plug in Jacoby Brissett. But what Miz and honestly the two of us are leaning towards is like, no, it won't be that way at all. We've seen Jacoby Brissett in Indy. He can air it out. You got Jalen Waddle there, and Will Fuller is coming back. With Will Fuller coming back and playing, that may free up some ownership and just free up Jalen Waddle on the field in general. So he was all right with stacking Brissett and Waddle. And then you run it back, right, with Darren Waller, who is a target machine. He's, like we said, one of the best tight ends in the league. And then you got Kenyon Drake, who is filling in for the banged up Josh Jacobs. So, that is one of those games where maybe nobody's looking that way. Everybody thinks the Raiders are really good, or maybe not everybody, because I know I don't. But but a lot of people think the Raiders are the real deal. A lot of people see that Tua is out and the Dolphins probably won't be clicking on all cylinders like they could potentially with Tua. Not that they have all season, but that's just an opportunity for us, right? That's an opportunity to get that leverage and get those hot, low owned players that could possibly cash out. Now, I wouldn't dump all of my money into this, and I wouldn't, put all of my lineups in that. But if you're making a few lineups in GPP, I don't think it's a bad idea just to kind of throw some of these guys in here and see what you get on the other side. Those are the two stacks that he likes. He's got a couple more. You can check the website if you're a member. If not, sign up for our deal promotion, $25 a month. And you'll see some other plays that Miz likes. Me and Deb were talking before the show. There are a couple other one-off plays or one-off guys that we like. He mentioned Austin Eckler in the cash section. I absolutely like him in GPPs as well. He's got a solid floor and a high upside. He bounced back with 9 targets last week. He had 0 in week 1. And the Chargers are gonna need to stay competitive against Kansas City. So he'll be part of the game plan no matter what, which means he's kind of game script independent. I don't think like he's a running back, right? And he can get involved in the pass game. He could get involved in the run game. So when we say he's game script independent, that means they're probably going to use him no matter what, if they're winning, losing, tie game, whatever. So I think it's fair or safe to say you can lean on Austin Eckler. He's actually scored 17 plus DK points in 5 straight games against the Chiefs. So, he knows.
Good number.
There's a nice little stat that I pulled there this morning.
Yeah.
So he knows how to play against the Chiefs. The Chargers know how to use him against the Chiefs. And that's one of those reasons why we're liking Austin Eckler GPP play.
Not to mention the 202 rush yards per game that Chiefs have allowed. So he should have some holes.
Yeah, and and we mentioned this on the show too this week. He lines up everywhere. He's running plays at wide receiver. He's running plays in the backfield. They're putting him in motion. So he's one of those guys that's just dynamic. He just needs to stay on the field. And right now he's currently healthy, so feel free to play him.
Use him while he's healthy. That offense runs through 3 guys, and he is one of them: Mike Williams, Keenan, and Eckler.
Exactly. Another guy that I like is actually Antonio Gibson. I think he's priced pretty low at 5,900 on DraftKings. If he catches 2 to 3 balls, I think he's interesting. I think this would be a pivot play off of CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, where a lot of people are tending to go with the ownership. Just little, I'm not going to harp too much on Antonio Gibson. I think he's a talented guy, but if you're pivoting off of that CEH ownership, I think in that price range, you can go Antonio Gibson.
She is averaging 3.5 targets, 16.5 carries. So, you're looking at 20 touches a game. That's a good price for 20 touches. Yeah,
exactly. And then on the wide receiver front, I got a couple of guys that I like here. We spoke about this game earlier. The Rams wide receivers. I mentioned it before. Tampa Bay defense has allowed more PPR fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than any other team in the league. Robert Woods seems a little bit underpriced for his level of talent at 5,700 on DraftKings. Also, I think Van Jefferson could be interesting as well. He's the clear number 3 in LA. Given the game environment, how we think they're going to be airing it out, he could easily catch a couple balls, fall into the end zone, that sort of thing. Van Jefferson wouldn't be a bad GPP play. And then obviously our boy, who's becoming the unofficial sponsor of the show, Cooper Kupp, has been balling out as of late. Matt Stafford seems to lock onto him and love him. And that is, indicative of Matt Stafford behavior throughout his career, where he finds that one guy. So all 3 of those guys come into play. If you told me you were playing any of them in a GPP, I would not really have too much argument there. Moving over to some not so great offensive teams, I do like Marvin Jones, priced at 4,900 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. He remains to be, in my opinion, one of the best values on the board, specifically for DraftKings at 4,900. He's seen 20 targets through the first 2 weeks, and Jacksonville is going to be in a very pass-heavy script. The Cardinals are a touchdown favorite. They're projected to score 30 implied points. That means that Jacksonville is going to have to air it out to keep up. They're going to have to score points. Urban Meyer could completely kill this entire conversation and do something crazy that nobody's even thinking about, like run the ball 200 times.
Yeah, right.
He hasn't done that, but I do like Marvin Jones at that price point for a GPP play. I think a lot of people hear Jacksonville and they say, screw that. I'm not going that way, but that's all the more reason to kind of throw him in there.
That's one of those, you'll hear me say pricing discrepancies a lot. That's one of those really big ones. He's 6'3" on FanDuel. He's only 4'9" on DraftKings. So DraftKings is really undervaluing, my goodness.
There it is.
What he has done on the year. He's averaging 10 targets a game, 66 yards. He's got a touchdown each week. The game script, as you mentioned, is perfect. So I should mention Jones and Tyler Boyd are cash, that mid range. I didn't really give you like a 4, 5 to 5K cash play. That it would be Marvin Jones and Tyler Boyd, with Boyd because Higgins is out. So I do want to throw that in there as well.
And I think Chenault is hurt, isn't he?
He's been banged up since week 1, so I think he's playing. But I mean, Marvin's the clear number one for this team.
Yeah, I wouldn't let that scare me off of him.
Yeah.
And then another guy that we spoke about on the Wednesday show, as Miz would say, Darnell Mooney to the moon, coming in at 4,200 on DraftKings. Could be a nice dart play there. You know, he's outperformed Robinson this year, surprisingly, this far. And he doesn't need much. You know, he's got 15 targets through the first 2 games, and he needs basically about 10 to 12 points to be worth the play. So, you know, he's another guy with tremendous upside. I put him in that Rondell Moore category, where you're not, you know, he's a budding star. He's not quite the star yet, right? So he's one of those guys where, you know, we take advantage of this low ownership, low price point with Darnell Mooney. Another guy who had a bunch of hype coming into the year, had a great camp and offseason. So Darnell Mooney, my final, you know, GPP wide receiver play.
Yep, and I'm on board with all of those guys.
And then another one that we spoke about briefly on the cash segment, but I'm gonna chime in here and throw his hat in the ring for GPPs. That's Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. 5,800 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. He had a good start actually to the season, all things considered, considering the defense he was playing, right? Denver is a top 3, top 5 defense, right?
Yeah.
Washington, even though they're having a weird start to the year, they're still a good defense, and Daniel Jones is definitely fantasy viable for these type of tournament plays. You know, this is more about also like how bad the Falcons are on defense. We spoke about this. Like
so
no team has allowed yeah, exactly. Like no team has allowed more fantasy points to QBs than Atlanta has all year. Now, they've had a couple of good QBs that they played, like Tom Brady tore them up, obviously. And then I think the week before that was Jalen Hurts. But there's no reason why Daniel Jones can't do the same, right? Like Daniel Jones is, you know, he's a Jalen Hurts type, right? He's got the rush ability, which is always an upside. I was talking with a couple of buddies of mine that I'm from New York, so they have a bunch of, you know, Giant fans. Daniel Jones' top speed is like 20 miles an hour.
He's quick.
He's faster than people give him credit for. And I was one of those guys. Ball. Right. It's you know, you talk about the fast guys in the league, like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and guys like that. And even like historically fast people like Michael Vick, right?
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, he's not like as fast as Michael Vick, but he's not far off if you look at his 40 times and his top speeds. So, you know, that's always just a plus there. Miz hates Joe Judge, so I had to sneak that in there. He's on Miz's list.
He's on the list.
The Miz section, so keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, you know, if I'm looking at Daniel Jones here, maybe I pair him with a Sterling Shepard or a Kenny Golladay. If I'm leaning one way or the other, it's probably Golladay because he was a game time decision or is a game time decision. Not sure if he's going to play, but if he does play, that just means low ownership, and that's what I'm going to try and link him up with. Sterling Shepard also totally viable in that scenario if you're stacking Daniel Jones with anybody.
I bet Kenny comes in at 1% ownership. You know, he's going to be super low because he hasn't been very good.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to play Shepard, but I mean, Kenny G's 1,000+ yard receiver. So
what they call him in Detroit was Optimus Prime, right? Because Calvin Johnson was Megatron.
Yeah.
So let's see. Right now he's kind of looking like Bumblebee, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, so those are the people that I am kind of targeting for my GPP plays. Is there anybody on this list that I didn't mention that maybe is interesting to you, Dev?
Yeah. So this is a homer pick.
Of course.
Don't sleep on Felton for the Browns with Landry out. So Felton came in, they drafted him in the 6th round. You know, a 6th round pick, you're not expecting a ton. You're just kind of hoping. He blew everybody away at camp and had a great preseason. He returns kicks. He returns punts. He ended up taking some vet spots on the roster and was just a super pleasant surprise. Well, last week they used him out of the slot when Landry got hurt, and he had a monster catch in which he had a nasty spin and ended up scoring. Felton is a super upside play, especially if they're going to use him out of the slot, because he can do trick plays. He can run receiver. He can run running back. he is, like I said, he is returning punts, he is returning kicks. So, even if he's not on the field a ton, when he is out there, he's got a ton of upside. So Felton's a guy I will absolutely have in some GPPs. And he's guys either going to get you 0 or he's going to put a touchdown up. So kind of the perfect GPP play.
Yeah. So the type of guy you probably don't want to pick up in season long at this moment, but definitely worth throwing a dart DraftKings or FanDuel.
I got him in my season long, but he's on my bench. I got a very good team, so
I'm not surprised by that, considering the Browns gear that you got on and the homer pick. But it's just he's not there for me yet.
No, and that's like I got a good team, so I stashed him on my bench. I won't need him anytime soon, so he's sitting on the bench, and I'm hoping to see a big day out of him today.
All right, so to recap here, we'll just go through some of the top plays that you mentioned for the cash. I correct me if I'm wrong here. I had high end. You're looking at Lamar in your cash builds, and you really love Fields for that punt / money saver on the QB front. Running back, we're targeting CEH, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, or Alexander Madison. Some combination of those guys with their favorable price points. You could always go up to Derrick Henry, but at his high $8,000 range, may not be worth it for you when you can get those guys in. On the wide receiver front, we love the Rams wide receivers. We've said it multiple times: Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyreek Hill is always there as an option. Guy's a freak. But some lesser known plays, maybe KJ Osborne, Rondell Moore, Cortland Sutton, or Keenan Allen.
Yep. And Chris Godwin should be a guy who pulls quite a bit of ownership on DraftKings.
So for cash, you'd go Chris Godwin as well, or consider him.
Yeah, definitely have him on your short list for DraftKings.
And then on the tight end front, obviously Travis Kelce. We're going to say his name basically every week as long as he's on that main slate. So shocker there. You don't need to be an expert to like Travis Kelce, but you do like TJ Hawkinson as well, coming in, I believe, at 5,200 on DraftKings, which is a nice price for that talent.
Yep, he's got similar upside at pretty drastic savings.
And then defense, we don't really talk about too much because we should not be favoring any defenses. But I did hear you mention the Bills, right? Or who was the other one?
Bills on FanDuel, a nice price. And then I like the Bengals as a punt, and then the Titans as another punt.
That's right, the Bengals. And then on the GPP front, as I mentioned, you can find all this information on the website. But just to summarize here, Miz is targeting the Vikings stack against the Seattle Seahawks. He also is going contrarian here, or what we think might be contrarian, and taking the Miami-Vegas game as a unique stack. And then I mentioned some guys, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson on the running back front. We liked Marvin Jones, the Rams wide receivers, and Darnell Mooney on the wide receiver front. And then I also mentioned Daniel Jones against Atlanta. Anything else that I didn't miss before we jump into PrizePicks in Vegas here and get everybody out ready to rock before noon?
Nope. It is worth mentioning that we've actually one of our own has won he's won the 20 grand on FanDuel with a Miami Dolphins stack. So it does sound crazy to stack a team like the Dolphins, but that's those plays. If you hit on them, you're going to get them all at stupid low ownership. And
in my opinion, when I'm making my GPP lineups, I want to feel uncomfortable about a couple of plays. Yeah, because that means that like a lot of other people, like usually when in doubt, the way you're thinking mentally when you are in these large prize pools, and that's also another thing too, right? That we talk about on the midweek show. We're not going to get into it here, but like the type of contest you're selecting and playing, everybody loves the Millie Maker, but there's like how many people in that contest, and then the people who are winning that contest are playing to win that contest. You can put over 100 entries in. That's a lottery ticket, right? But if you're playing some of these other tournament pools and they're a little bit lower, maybe it's a higher price point to enter, but it's better chances to win. You want to feel a little uncomfortable about the things you're doing. You don't want to go completely crazy and just be like, this is what I'm going to do because, it's GPP and I got to be different. But like, if you have a sound strategy and you're targeting guys for a specific reason, usually over the course of a season that pans out. And that is more along the lines of, targeting games that have high projections, either implied totals per team or just implied totals combined. You want to target guys that have low ownership And that's why you use a website like ours to get the cheat sheet and kind of see what that estimated ownership is coming in at. And you also want to target guys with value, right? Guys who are like a Saquon Barkley and is coming in at, I think, 62 or 6,800, right? And he is tremendous upside, and he can put forward the output of a guy who's priced at 9,000. So that's like kind of like what you want to build around, and game scripts in general. So just leave everybody with that note as we move into our prize pick section here.
Yep. And then I say it every week. I try to remember to be a fan, have fun, stack your team. The Browns week 1, for instance, were a great stack that nobody played. I'm a Browns fan, so I threw a couple bucks on them. Just remember, DFS is fun. So even if it's $1, stack your favorite team. Even if it's in a terrible matchup, just to add a little, whole DFS is supposed to be fun. Have fun. It's just adding another layer to sports that we all love. Stack your favorite team, have some fun.
And another, the final note I'll leave here too, and Miz and I have had these conversations, and we started doing it. I always tend to play my cash lineup in 1 GPP.
Oh,
because
that's a must.
Yeah, because it sucks when that lineup pops and you're like, oh man, I would have won a tournament or taken down a tournament if I played my cash lineup. So always throw your cash lineup in 1 GPP. It doesn't have to be your major one. Just you want to do it, because we've actually been, and if you tune into the midweek show, the show before the show, this is the show. We analyze the winning cash lineups and the Millie Maker lineups, and a lot of the guys, there's correlation between the cash plays and the GPP plays. So it's in your best interest, if you're making those lineups, you don't want to be kicking yourself if you put up 190 points on your cash lineup and you're like, oh man, I would have taken down this tournament and won 20 grand, but instead I won $50. So do yourself a favor and play them both if you're doing that type of play.
Our cheat sheet top plays last week. So again, you should watch the show before the show. There's a ton of really good info. One of the things we do is we take the plays from the cheat sheet that were labeled as cash viable plays. It's not a huge list of plays, and I crunch them to see how they, the best result with those groups of players would have been. And every week you're looking at monster scores that are going to place in the top, 1-2% of GPP. So definitely get that cash play in a tournament, because sometimes if chalk hits, you're looking at a monster score.
Exactly. All right, let's move into some of our gambling picks here with PrizePicks. Guys, if you don't know what PrizePicks is, it's actually a really cool, unique app where you can place wagers on fantasy output of players, or just straight up prop betting. So Dev, have you looked at the site? These lines tend to move. So if you like something yesterday, chances are that number is probably different today. But anything jump off the page to you there with the PrizePicks?
Yeah. So what I like to do with PrizePicks is a lot of the plays that, we like DFS wise, that's where I'm really looking, because those are the guys I've really concentrated on with my research anyways. So for instance, we talked about KC, how many yards per game they're giving up on the ground. You got Austin Eckler at 55.5 rush yards. I like over there. Right next to him, Tyreek Hill at half a rush yard.
I saw that. I did see that one.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty clear over. So those are the rushing ones I like. Receiving wise, I'm kind of staying away from the passing yards, because they're all pretty spot on. Receiving yard wise, though, I like Hawkinson over 58.5. You could run any of these plays too. Like Hawkinson also has like a catches prop that I like. So you can kind of pick which one you feel best about for a lot of these guys. So like Hawkinson, I like all of his over props. Just make sure they make sense. Same thing, Keenan Allen over 82.5. Yeah, that's a big number, but he literally puts up 100 yards a game. Eckler 39.5. So same thing. I like all of his props.
And you know what I find myself doing actually sometimes with PrizePicks too? I use it as a site to cross-reference my picks in DraftKings.
Yeah.
Meaning if I'm on the fence between, Austin Eckler and let's just say, I don't know, Derrick Henry, right? Maybe those two guys don't make sense, but whatever. I'll go to PrizePicks and I'll be like, well, what are their props coming in at? Like, what does the industry think that these guys are going to output? And is it worth me investing in this person over that person? So that's just another way you can use it.
Shockingly accurate too. So that's a really good strategy. So yeah, I like Mooney, guy we're really high on, over 3.5 receptions. Again, you could run Hawkinson over 6. A lot of these guys that we've really been talking about how much we like them. It correlates to prize picks as well. Let's see here. I saw a couple more I liked. Eckler over half a touchdown. Saquon Barkley over half a touchdown. These guys that are going to be on Joe Mixon over half touchdown, these guys that are going to get a ton of opportunity, they're going to be on the field. You got to like those. Kyler Murray averages like 1 or 2 rushing yards per game. Kyler Murray over half a rushing touchdown. Do the same thing with Lamar. So this is a massive board. Take your time looking at it. Cooper Kupp over half receiving touchdown. Tyreek over half a receiving touchdown. There are a lot of plays to like, and there's a lot to look at. So for PrizePicks, I suggest going through, taking your time, picking your favorites.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's move over and get everybody out of here with enough time. We'll just quickly run through our picks, our Vegas picks from midweek. Some of these lines may have changed. I'm just gonna rattle them off. Basically, what we said and locked ourselves into. We are keeping a tally. I believe you and Miz are 2 and 4 on the year, and I am actually 4 and 2. So that was a humble brag, but whatever.
You slept last week, so
yeah, I did. I did sweep last week. So I'll start with my picks. I liked Kansas City -6.5 over the Chargers. That was my least favorite pick, honestly, and mainly because I think Kansas City wins this game. But it has, first of all, it's a division game, so they tend to play each other pretty tough. And I also can see the Chargers getting a sneaky backdoor cover with like 2 minutes left, and Kansas City's playing off, and the Chargers just kind of drive down the field and do dumps to Eckler or whoever, and cover that 6.5. But I'm gonna go with it anyways because when in doubt, go against your gut with Vegas. The other two that I like here are Seattle -1.5 versus Minnesota. I just don't really think Minnesota's a good team. I think they should have lost last week. I think Seattle's better than what they played last week. So for that, I'm going -1.5 there. And I also like, and this is the game that we differ on, Tampa Bay -1.5 over the Rams. The Rams are a good team. I think they're getting a little bit more hype than they probably deserve, given the last 2 weeks and who they played and all that type of stuff. But it'll be a shootout. I think that'll be a fun game. I think that'll be a game that everybody is harped in on fantasy wise. So hopefully, they drop like 50 or 60 points in that game, and it's just fun for everybody. But I do like Tampa Bay. I could see them. It could be one of those games where it's like whoever has the ball last is going to win.
Yes.
So
100%.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay there. I'll speak on Miz's behalf. We got he came in at New Orleans +3 against New England. Mainly because he did not think the game last week was indicative of how good or bad New Orleans is. That was more attributed to the fact that they were missing 8 coaches, skills coaches. So, a little bit shocking. Everybody sees them get blown out. But again, I guess, those position coaches make a difference. And when you're missing 8 of them,
yes.
the more the merrier. Yeah. So he's going New Orleans +3 against New England. He likes Arizona -7.5 versus Jacksonville. Don't really need to harp on that too much. Jacksonville's terrible. The Cardinals probably should cover that with ease, in my opinion. And then also he likes Miami +3.5 versus Vegas. I don't know if I agree with him on this, but I think this is sour grapes because the Raiders embarrassed the Ravens on Monday Night Football 2 weeks ago, and he's just digging in. If you listen to our show, he's digging in on how bad the Raiders are. I don't think the Raiders are good either. But at the same time, you're taking Miami +3.5 on the road with your backup quarterback. I don't know. It's a wild play, but he loved it. So Miz taking +3.5. We are by no means experts. We're just fans here, but that's what he's taking. Dev, do you remember your picks, or do you want me to rattle them off to you?
Well, I know I had the Rams. My reason being the Antonio Brown injury. And the fact that the secondary is banged up, but
injury 100%, or is it injury or COVID?
COVID, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree. This probably comes down to who has the ball last, but I really wanted to pick the opposite of one of your and Miz's pick. I was considering the opposite of the Miami game. And then I was considering the opposite of the Rams game. And I just thought that Rams game should be so much fun to watch. I figured I'll take the other side. We'll have a little fun with it. That game truly could go either way. And then I think I took my Browns because I take them every week. Is that correct?
You did take the Browns -7.5 for Chicago. I don't know if that's still the line.
That's a big number. They did not cover last week. They did not look great. The Landry injury scares me, but again, if you're watching, I'm not giving you bets that you should go putting money on. I've never made a bet. It's not legal in Ohio. This is more for fun, just some fun.
Yeah, but you're the stereotypical person that wins their bets.
I know,
one
right?
who says, "Don't follow me. I don't know what I'm doing." It's like my wife when she fills out the NCAA tournaments. Like she's like, "Oh, I'll take this team. They have beautiful baby
I love
blue
the jerseys."
uniforms. Yeah, exactly. And then she ends up winning and cleaning up, and I'm like doing analysis, and I'm sitting there crunching numbers and drinking coffee, and I get dead last. You're the type of person that you want to follow, honestly. So
I mean, obviously I know football. So it's not like I'm talking out of my ass, but obviously 7.5 is not the smartest bet in the world.
And we know you're not taking the Browns for their uniforms. So
no, God, no, certainly not. And then I did take Arizona as well. Again, we don't need to really get into that. I would be pretty surprised if that didn't hit. So I took 2 pretty big lines, which is not the smartest betting strategy in the world, but that's where I landed.
We'll see.
Yep.
All right. I think, we went a little over here, 12:07, but plenty of time to get those lineups in. Plenty of time to pop into our Discord channel and ask questions to the guys here. It's not just, Miz and Devin. They got a whole crew and staff of guys that know their stuff and they know it really well. And everybody's sharing lineups and chatting in our premium Discord channel. So we are going to let you guys go. We appreciate you for tuning in. We will be back next week, same place, same time for week 4. Keep an eye out for our midweek show, the show before the show, where we kind of review. It's a fun show. It's a fun show. It comes out typically on Fridays, so you got a couple of different opportunities to watch it there up until this show, where we review this week the winning lineups, the strategies, the breaking news, the injuries. We talk about our picks. We do dust or must. Where we, it's our version of love hate, and we have Be a Goldfish section, which is our tribute to Ted Lasso and our Apple TV Plus sponsorship that we don't quite have yet. But
I promise you'll be laughing on that show. So it truly is worth a watch.
Yeah, it's just us kind of drinking beers and talking football. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Dev, thanks as always for your time, and we will talk to you next week. That is the host, John Maffa. That's Devin, the expert, and we will talk to you later. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck.